Hi again. This is Joseph S. Samaniego, the author of the Carolyngian Age series, and I am doing another quick video. I did one earlier that was kind of a broad idea of fantasy literature and fantasy genre, basically games, movies, and a little bit of how it connects to the real world and how the real world influences. And it was just a brief overview, very broad, that will get expanded upon later. But I wanted to talk about something else. I did say I make maps, do a lot of cartography, and one of the things that I've been tinkering with recently is the how I want to present my fantasy world within the context of the literature, but also with the real world, real life elements. So I did a manor house design on a Mod and Bailey, and I did show a map of one of the cities in a few of my books, but I also did a smaller version of that of a manor house that I would like to show and just kind of go over and give it a couple quick little details. It'll be a quick video, and but I hope you do like it. So, hey, be fun. Hey, so looking at this is a manor house. As you can see, it's actually from the top down, and you're looking at the inside of the house, and it's a small manor house. This is actually kind of what's described it being in Antei, although the bigger map you can't really tell. But in the Fate of Kings and Queens book, this is the really what the manor house would look like. Sorry, I'm so low. I'm kind of sitting down. So it is a small manor. It was built hundreds of years prior to the events of the book, and the real idea behind the manor was they built a very defensible place that was that was basically never sacked, never conquered, never taken over physically, and because of that, it had this fame to it. And there's a reason why it was never taken over completely is because of its location and its development. So what you see is you have a main house, a small kitchen style larder, and then a watchtower. And there's a outer wall, but the wall doesn't encompass the whole area. And all of this is sitting on top of a man-made hill, as you can see, a motte. And you can see stairs over there to the western portion. And most of these would have a well situated up top. However, that wasn't always traditionally the case. I put it here because I liked it. I liked the idea of it. Plus, it added to that space. So if you go into you're walking up the stairs up top of the motte, and there's the house. Well, right there, as you come up those stairs, right to your left is the watchtower, and that's where the guards would have stayed, and that's probably where they would have obviously been keeping sentry, but that would have been kind of their home, but not necessarily. A lot of times, the guards and the house girls and the actual personal retainers of the household would have stayed in that house. And in fact, it would have been probably very uncomfortable because, in a lot of ways, depending on how much money you had, you would have had them living in your banquet hall, which was not always a banquet hall. It was a great hall. It would have been where you kept court. You don't actually see a chair there because there's really not enough room for a chair. There is a banquet table with benches, but you don't see the actual chair. So, walking around, like I said, you have the outside kitchen and larder type area. They keep food there. There's not a lot of room, so they have to keep the barrels throughout the whole campus in a sense. And a separate kitchen was pretty common even up to 100 years ago, if not more. And a lot of the reasons for that was because of the fact that if a fire started, it could be contained in your kitchen and not anywhere else, and it wouldn't spread to your main living area. My father grew up in a place like that. It wasn't until probably the 60s, I think, that they had a kitchen that was actually part of the main house, because that's how, especially here in North Carolina, the rural areas, people lived in houses that had separate kitchens simply because of the fact that those poorly built homes would have caught on fire if the kitchen, if that lard had caught fire, it would have burned the whole place down. So you didn't want to risk your whole house. So the kitchens were usually separate. That's kind of what's here. It is next to it, but it's also stone. So that helps. Now you walk into the main hall. Like I said, there's a banquet table. That's where your retainers, your personal retainers, not your bannermen, but your personal soldiers, your housecarls, the ones that are pretty much your bodyguards, would have stayed. Unless you had more money to build onto it, or they had another house somewhere around here, they would have stayed there. And they would have ate there, slept there. As you can see, there is a pot near a couple of the fireplaces. There's braziers all over the place, fireplaces, and that's because this is a no insulation stone building. It's cold. It will be cold in the wintertime and probably really hot in the summertime. So those, actually the stone floor might have been cool in the summertime. Those fireplaces would have been extremely helpful. And then you have the main bedroom, and that would have been the chamber for the lord, the manor lord, the gentry lord, whoever owns the house, whoever owns that manor house. Now, the one thing I like to show you about this is just the simplicity of it, while still being functional and useful. There is a lot of areas that still have some of these in today's world. You find them a lot in England, especially, but even the original houses and castles were built like this because it was so defensible, because it was so prominent of a structure on a hill. And typically, your only other structure that would have raised higher than this would have been a church. And now a lot of that had a symbolism of, oh, okay, this is the house of God, has to be higher than than the Lord's house. Obviously, the Lords would usually want to say, no, my house should be higher. It just really depends on the people. But the thing that I've always liked about these style of houses was how quick they could have been to erect and to build a city or a town around, while keeping the focus on the protection of the Lord protecting his people. A lot of times, you don't see the outer bailey, or actually, excuse me, really would have been the inner bailey of this. So around the motte, you would have had an inner bailey. And then around that, you would have had an outer bailey, typically. Now, the outer bailey could have been the one around the motte. But within that, you would also have defensive locations for your men at arms, or basically your your tenant fighters, as I call them. And really, what these are is the people who are renting the land from you in times of war would now be called upon to fight for you. So that's kind of something here too. And that you did see in the map from Antei. So really, this is just a simple manor house, and I'm going to be doing more in the future, larger castles. And this is, like I said, this is something that you would see described in the Carolyngian Age series books. I like to describe these things in detail as much as I can, because of the fact that it gives you a sense of where they're at and how they're living, and why they live certain ways. So I hope you enjoyed this little quick one. Please like and subscribe it, and stick around for more, because I'm sure they'll come up with more. So please like, subscribe, and see you next time.